Hello, I want to talk about maps, system design interview question. So, many of you know or use Apple Maps or Google Maps. Then applications like Uber has like integration with maps for drivers. And it seems like it's pretty common part of our lives. So how do we design that? Some topics I would cover is like, of course, clarifying questions and requirements, then showcase high-level design and components, talk about locations and routes, computing ETA, and additional topic as a search results ranking. Clarifying questions is always going to be like a lot, and you need to spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about these. And this here is mostly just like functional requirements. Also, I need to talk about non-functional requirements like availability, consistency, durability, performance, and etc. So for functional requirements, like we have different degree of like what can be stored for locations. I recommend just like picking what the service you use does and like separating some more essential functionality from functionality which can be added like later on top. Like for example, for locations, we probably need some name, description, address, but you can also ask, shall we support ratings or like some saved places? Then what features should the location search support? Do we need some partial search with ranking of results? Like when you search by some like part of the name, etc. Then talk about scale and say which countries and languages are being covered. Like if it's just English, maybe easier, but if it's like whole world, you need some strategies to account for supporting different languages and different like naming schemes for maps, and even getting maps for some places may be harder. Then what transports do we need to support to compute routes for? Is it just cars? And I would assume like cars just for simplicity, but interviewer may ask you to like also support bicycles, pedestrians, public transportation. That can complicate things quite a lot. And do we need to consider traffic for route ETAs? Most likely the answer would be yes. And what's the business model? Is it like SaaS, like just separate something like competitor of Google Maps? Or is it supplementary feature, for example, for ride sharing company like Uber? And those can also influence some decisions and like high level choices. Overall, this problem is pretty broad, and you can probably talk like the length of 2 or 3 design interviews if you talk about everything. So be sure to come up with some like limited set of functionality to talk about first, and then expand on it if you have time. Let's look at high-level components. We're gonna have like a typical like web application where on the left side there's some users with mobile application, website, or maybe desktop application. They go through some like DNS routes to like to load balancer to API gateway. API gateway does authentication, authorization, rate limiting, and a lot of other stuff. Then there are several services. I'm not gonna cover even like everything. There is like location service is the main one, which works with locations, like works with storing locations in metadata DB and retrieving them, and also like searches results. There can be also separate search services, but I decided to like keep it more like simple. Route service is for like computing routes and like the graph, and there is a graph DB available. Then there is ETA service for computing estimated travel time and choosing the best routes by travel time, which can talk to traffic service, and there is like traffic database. And these are like often would be like based on some publicly available data from like local authorities, maybe users of the map, and like maybe some reports. Like, for example, if there is a coming in report that, hey, there is a crash on some like big highway, you may try to consider just like going through other routes, even if you don't yet know like what the exact traffic is, because it's gonna like change a lot and gonna get definitely worse. We can add like more components here, for example, some Kafka for collecting information about various events, and like for even first things like what locations did users pick from suggested locations. We can definitely add a bit more services for like more specialized purposes. But overall, I think this is a good start. Let's talk about locations and routes. Locations are like graph vertices and routes are like graph edges, but also location has some metadata, like name and description, and coordinates and the geocoding. Geocoding is an important concept. I wouldn't go into like in depth here. I suggest just checking out the articles about this. It's a relatively short alphanumeric code based on which section of the map the location is in. And like you kind of split the map into several regions, and it determines like a first character, just like name them like something like A, B, C. Then I split them into more like each like sub part into like pieces, and then like geocode them by like another letter or like digit. Plus you avoid some like easy to confuse letters and digits. And in the end, like once you keep doing this, you would like exponentially reach some like relatively small piece of land where only like one location can reside. And that your code would not be super long, maybe like 10-ish characters, maybe like slightly more, depending how you split, depending how many different characters you take on each step. It has an interesting properties. For example, if geocodes are like have a common prefix, then locations are like closer together. But reverse is not necessarily true. If like some locations are on the boundary of some big zones of the map that you use for geocoding, then they may have quite different geocode but can still be close. You would need to account for that. Then routes can be stored on different level of zoom. They can be like on a more like higher level, zoomed out, like freeways connecting regions and cities. And that would be often used if like people need to travel long distances. Of course, we're not gonna like build a graph with all the local routes. Unless person searches for some like gas station, then we like just get like what's available in some like proximity. But then otherwise it would be more like big building blocks. Then highways connecting towns is gonna be like medium-sized blocks, for example. And then there would be local streets. So typically like paths would look like you go from local streets to some highways to like big freeways, and then go back to highways and go back to local streets. It's gonna like make our graph more manageable, and algorithms run in more like reasonable amount of time. Computing ETA, you can do like through like right degree of zoom. Yes, I've been mentioning. You have like a combined like algorithm which has some re-evaluation. You can get traffic estimates based on some local data, historical data, or like users of the maps. There would be some bootstrapping to do. Then you can also build in some like reporting inside your app if some people report that how bad is the traffic. The Waze maps do something like this. Then you build paths to like basically like go to different levels of zoom. You determine which level of zoom is needed, because if users just want to travel some short distance, you just use local streets and that's it. But also, like, you need to reevaluate if traffic changes, if there are some new reports coming in, and you may need to suggest a different route, so you just need to periodically reevaluate that. Let's also talk about search results ranking as an additional topic. So we mostly covered the core part, but this is also like pretty important piece. You typically would have a number of indexes based on various keywords and like locations. Plus, if you support search by coordinates, it's probably going to be a bit easier. You just need to find some locations and like routes nearby. Then you use some machine learning model, switches like proximity to like your current point or like starting point. Name or address match, like how many terms match, and how much of the like full pattern do you have. For example, if person enters like full address, then it's probably like more like specific match. But if they enter a state, then they probably just show a whole state. Then like popularity may be like for used for more like common terms. Then you may need to support users' feedback for search results and collect data which at least collect data which entries they click and use that for training models just to see like how good the results are. But overall, yeah, it's kind of similar to like how we generally do some ranking. So you can go into more detail about how to build a ranking system, go into more sophisticated patterns like aggregator, leaf, tailor, if you wanna show like more like knowledge of how this part would work and have time. Then another piece that's needed is like you need to work with people from different locations being serviced to like learn more about like naming conventions, or maybe just use public data sets for that. Say in different countries, like the addresses are like pretty different, maybe in different states and different cities it can be different. Yeah, so that would be roughly it for like search results ranking. More additional topics you can talk to is locations ranking and like saving locations. Maybe some reporting system, like people may report that there is a police, or like there's like big traffic ahead or some obstacle. You can try to talk about ads, but yeah, I don't think there is like ads like directly shown in the maps, but maybe ads can be used for some suggested search results. But even then, like you kind of, that's where like business thing matters. If you're building startup which builds apps, the monetization model may be like different than if you're just like a big company which uses maps as like one of the services and can like earn money from advertisement on other services, for example, and use this service just to retain users and get more reputation. There's just maybe some do good stuff for the world. That said, like some monetization is definitely like important because, well, at least in the US, companies are for profit for the most part, and shareholders basically demand profits. So yeah, there is that. But that part is probably like if you're interviewing for staff level or above, you may need to talk about business considerations and like business models more. For like more like mid-level, you probably don't need to like go into too many details on that. All right, that would be it. Thanks for watching.